She was locked away immediately and quarantined in a room with bars on the windows. They gave her some strange pills and she was also sedated. DORO PESCH, the original metal queen. She's been making waves in the metal industry for 4 decades and has even received a Lifetime Achievement Award in Germany in 2022. She almost died, got fucked over by her manager, almost went to jail, got thrown out of a courtroom, and had her home destroyed twice. This is DORO's story.
And it is not for the weak.
DORO was born in Dusseldorf, Germany, and is an only child. Her parents escaped the Second World War. Her mama was around 8 or 9 years old at the time, ran away bare feet with her mum. DORO's dad was a truck driver and she pretty much grew up in that truck. They would go to steel factories and coal mines. It was hard work, blood, sweat and metal. That's how she grew to love traveling and visiting new places. DORO and her dad were very close. They were a good team. It was a dream for her to be traveling to all these places as a kid, until she had to go to school. DORO had different interests than the other kids. She knew everything about trucks, greasing them, changing tires, and getting them in good shape for the weekend. Now her father loved music. They would listen to music really loud on a big sound system. He was also really good at singing and playing the piano. DORO's first introduction to rock was at the age of 3 when she heard the song Lucille by Little Richard. She was hooked and that's when she knew that she wanted to become a singer. By the age of 10, DORO was already playing the piano. And although her dad listened to more classical type music, DORO was in love with glam rock and hard bands like T-Rex, Sweet and Slade. In fact, Mark Bolan was the first singer who completely blew her away. DORO never really liked pop music. She always liked extreme, aggressive music. Interesting fact, when DORO was about 10 or 11, she and her bestie got their first tattoo, a tiny heart. Unfortunately, it wasn't from a professional tattoo artist and they both ended up getting sepsis. Kids, don't fucking try this at home, okay? Now, when she was about 15 or 16, DORO came face to face with death. She was diagnosed with terminal pulmonary tuberculosis. She was locked away immediately and quarantined in a room with bars on the windows. They gave her some strange pills and she was also sedated. It was brutal. It was then that DORO promised God that if by any chance she made it out alive, she would spend the rest of her life doing something that made people happy. That sickness took out 1 year of her life. She was one of the rare people who survived it. And in 2 weeks after she got out, she joined her first band, Snakebite. 2 of the band members from Snakebite, however, were skeptical about having a woman in such a hard band. There were no women doing this kind of hard music, so DORO had to work extra hard to really prove herself. Fun fact, they started in a small rehearsal room, and fans would come in and sit on the floor, listening to their rehearsals, headbanging and really enjoying themselves. The 2 band members who were initially skeptical of having a female singer, then very proudly exclaimed, "This is our singer, DORO!" DORO's parents were incredibly supportive. The whole band would hang out at DORO's place, and her parents really enjoyed taking care of them. Her mom said the bathroom would be blocked for an hour, and there was a lot of hair care going on. Even though her bandmates looked scary with bullet belts, long hair and piercings, her parents understood the assignment and really supported them. It was tough at the beginning. No money and just very few people at their concerts. They had to organize their own stage clothes, and that's when DORO realized her love for black leather. Honestly, they were just making really loud, aggressive music. They didn't even know it was heavy metal. Fun fact, their first gig was at a punk club. There were about 120 punks and about 30 to 35 metalheads. But then, all hell broke loose when the punks had enough of them and fights broke out. There was no security. The punks grabbed the band's instruments, including the drums, and trashed everything. DORO and the band members were hiding behind their marshals. The band members survived that night, and DORO's first thought was, wow, so that's how you play a gig. You see, punk and metal didn't really get along very well. In fact, metalheads couldn't even get into punk clubs. While they eventually got along, a lot of people would look down on metalheads. Nothing's changed. DORO remembers a couple of times when she and her band members would go to restaurants and the waiters didn't even want to serve them because they were probably scared of them. DORO actually studied to be a graphic designer. She finished her apprenticeship as a typographer and even had a job. She balanced her gigs with a full-time job, sometimes working about 20 hours a day. She was so used to hanging with the boys that she never felt different for being a woman in a heavy metal band. However, there was an incident on her tour bus when she was falling asleep and she felt a little hand reach down and start grabbing her. She hit the hand away, but then again the hand came back down and started touching her. This time DORO vowed that she would break the hand, and when it came down again, she grabbed it and twisted it till she heard. And that was the end of it. She didn't say who it was though. Doro changed her band to Beast and then Attack and finally to Warlock. It was here in Warlock that Doro felt true magic and power. The band rehearsed every single day. Germany at the time wasn't big on metal. The scene exploded later on, but back then, they had to play in other countries like Belgium, the Netherlands, and the UK. Interesting fact, on Warlock's first promotion tour to Hungary for their first album, Burning the Witches, the album cover featured a warlock lighting up a candle, and tied to a candle was a naked woman. At the border in Hungary, the officers got really furious with the artwork, assuming it was pornography. They took away all the records, and the band members were so scared that they were going to go to jail. Calm down, they weren't arrested. Another interesting fact, their fan club sent out their demo tapes to record companies without her and a band knowing. Within 2 weeks, Warlock had 4 record deal offers. A few weeks later, they signed with Mausoleum, a Belgian-based heavy metal label. Warlock grew very quickly as there were very few great metal bands out of Germany, but Doro always wanted to go to America. She got a chance and went to America for just 3 days. And while in New York, she loved it so much that she decided to stay. Doro became the first woman to perform at the legendary Monsters of Rock festival, alongside Ozzy Osbourne, Scorpions, and Motorhead. She didn't even know it was that huge back in the day. No access to social media or cell phones. They went on stage and they were just hit with about 80,000 people. But it was a huge success because that propelled Warlock to even greater heights, touring alongside metal gods like Dio and Megadeth. They then went on tour with Judas Priest, Wasp, Aerosmith, Motorhead, Saxon, and more. That's when she quit her job as a graphic designer. Doro even became very close friends with Motorhead's Lemmy. In fact, after Lemmy's passing, Doro received a package from LA with a little bullet and Lemmy's name engraved on it. The bullet had Lemmy's ashes and a letter came with it that said, Lemmy wanted to give this to his most loyal friends and closest circle. Fun fact, Warlock's most heavily played video, All We Are, was filmed in the LA River Basin, the same place where Terminator 2 was filmed. You remember that scene? Now, English wasn't Doro's first language. It was very hard at the beginning while songwriting, as she used a dictionary to translate and some lines just didn't make any sense. For example, she wrote a song that she was really proud of, and the chorus read, I'm a red light star. When doing a tour in England, a journalist asked her what the song meant, and she said, you know, me, a rock star on stage with the red lights. And he goes, red light is actually a district where the hookers go. Interestingly enough, that song didn't make the album. The other challenge with Doro's English skills while living in America was doing interviews. People would just be rambling and she wouldn't understand a fucking word, but she slowly learned. It wasn't all fun and games in America though. She and her band were young and overwhelmed with all the success. The pressure started to come from labels and there was a lot of disagreement, leading to 2 band members quitting. Doro was demanded to quit smoking. She couldn't eat what she wanted to, only salads and American food. She had to wake up every day before the crack of dawn and exercise for 3 to 4 hours. She felt really bullied and they were given ultimatums to either commit 100% or have nothing. But her love for music and the fans really made up for all the bad shit. Doro's American manager then introduced her to Joey Ballin, who worked with the band on the production of Warlock's 4th album, Triumph and Agony, which was their best album. Doro and Joey got really close and eventually became roommates. Fun fact, Doro has always been very curious and interested in forbidden stuff. Joey then introduced her to the Ouija board, which they played around with a lot, summoning spirits. However, the house, she said, was then filled with some weird energy and they eventually had to move out. She then requested Joey to ask the spirits if they had one last message for her. And the message that came back was, Doro, make time for love. And that they turned into a song. Metal was exploding everywhere. Warlock was unstoppable. And even though things were problematic, they were always moving upwards. But all of that success came to a screeching halt with the death of Warlock and metal. Somewhere towards the end of the 80s, Doro turned on her radio in her rental car and suddenly there was no metal playing. Unusual since the US had a lot of rock and metal stations. That was the start of grunge taking over. And moving into the 90s, metal was dead on the radio. The new gods were Nirvana, Pearl Jam, Soundgarden, and Alice in Chains. Even the most popular bands struggled, and only the ones who had built fan bases outside the US were able to keep going. All their previous years of success counted for nothing. That wasn't DORO's only problem though. You see, her band WARLOCK had two managers, one to manage the US market and one to manage the European market. After their most successful album release and working on a follow-up album, the European manager just quit and took off. He lost contact and went to Turkey. But with him, he took the rights to the name of the band, WARLOCK. Suddenly, the band were not allowed to use the name WARLOCK anymore on anything. When DORO and her band took it to court, the manager turned up in a white suit and a tie, as opposed to DORO and her bandmates, young, metal-looking, with long hair and piercings. That alone was enough to convince the old judge to give the rights to the manager, and they lost that case. DORO got so upset that she ended up screaming in the courtroom that he had stolen their name. She had to be removed from the courtroom. Appealing a decision that you've just lost requires a ton of cash, and it is a very complicated process. But the band said, fuck it, we're still going to use the name WARLOCK. However, then they had a bunch of lawyers threatening them with $50,000 fines if they saw the name WARLOCK on another poster or album cover or anything. At this point, every member of the now ex-WARLOCK was now replaced with a new line of musicians, except DORO. She was forced to continue under a new name, and that's how the name DORO was formed. Now with WARLOCK and metal dead mainstream, DORO struggled to get her records released in the US. If it didn't sound like grunge, the companies refused to release them. But she didn't feel like grunge. She wanted to stay true to metal. And so her band went from playing in front of 50, 80,000 people to just 100 or 500 people playing at weddings and private parties. But she didn't care. She would ride this wave. Despite the decline of metal in the US, DORO's albums continued to be well received in her home country, Germany, where she continued to extensively tour. She received 5 nominations at the German Echo Music Awards, which she won in 1994 for Best Female National Artist. Thanks to her European tours, she became so popular in Spain. She was voted 13 times Best International Singer by readers of Heavy Rock magazine in their annual polls. In fact, despite living in the US, Europe helped her financially survive this incredibly tough period. She continued putting out new albums, experimenting with industrial, punk, and blues, but always staying true to metal. Then, around early 2000, DORO came upon an opportunity to tour with the mighty duo again. Times were financially tough, but man, she couldn't miss that. So DORO went ahead and sold her life insurance to pay for the cost of the tour, despite people telling her that she was totally out of her fucking mind, that no one would turn up, that rock and metal were dead. It ended up being the best tour of DORO's life, and she and Dio became close friends. Metal had started to make a comeback. It had stood the test of time.
Does anyone like heavy metal music?
Yes, we fucking do, Karen. Kate, the European manager who took off with the rights for their band WARLOCK, was found dead.
Karma's a bitch.
The head of a magazine in the Netherlands called her up and told her that her ex-manager was poisoned and killed. After 20 years of fighting, DORO finally got her rights back to her band WARLOCK, and things started to really look up for DORO, but life had more disasters in store for her. In 2011, DORO lost her home in Long Island due to Hurricane Irene. Her home was just a heap of ruins, but the worst part for her was losing all her stage clothes and the years of gifts and souvenirs that she had collected from fans all over the world. What's worse, in 2013, her new home in New York then got destroyed by Hurricane Sandy. Unbelievable that this happened to her twice, but she says that playing music and being with her fans are her real riches in life. DORO was a chain smoker. She sometimes had a cigarette in both hands. She ate crap, didn't really look after herself. In fact, after every tour, she would be in a coma-like state, completely exhausted and broken, needing a lot of sleep to recover. She was never much of a drinker though. DORO has always been a fan of sport, and in the mid-90s, she took up Thai boxing, which she says gave her a different level of confidence. She says it was a great workout and it kept her in really good shape. DORO is also a big fan of martial arts and has practiced Kung Fu and Eskrima, a Philippine martial art that uses sticks and knives. She says she still gets stage fright before shows, feels nauseous like she's about to throw up. But martial arts have really helped her train her mind to be calm and her body to be strong. It has even helped her recover faster from tours. DORO also quit smoking, started eating healthier, and turned vegan. She's extremely fond of animals, especially horses and dogs. In fact, she adopted 2 horses that were treated really badly by their previous owners. She's also associated with various animal rights organizations. She uses fake leather now and vegan makeup. When it comes to martial arts, touring makes it really difficult for Doro to keep up with the classes. So she enjoys long walks and jogs. She loves nature and sometimes picks up branches and stuff for strength training. When Doro and her band started, most people would say, they're a one-hit wonder, or call them the flavor of the month. People in the industry would say, let's see how long the girl lasts. It's been 4 decades for Doro, and she is still on fucking fire. 17 studio albums with more on the way, collaborations with metal titans including Lemmy, Gene Simmons, Floor Jansen, Amon Amarth, Tarja Turunen, and more. Her dedication paved the way for many, many women in metal. There's one thing she attributes to what has kept her going: her fans. This is serious, guys. When Doro was around 24, she woke up one day and decided that she would dedicate the rest of her life to her fans, touring, and metal. No vacation, she lives for metal. So serious that she never married or had kids. She believes that she is married to metal. Doro has been in love several times, but music always came first. She even has a tattoo that says, "The one who loves the fans forever." Her message to the world: when there's a lot of light, there is also a lot of darkness. Follow your heart and keep doing what you do best. Never ever give up, even when shit gets hard. Here's an artist who fast-tracked her way to success with pure determination and will. Fabienne Ernie from LVD and Illumishade. Go check her out.
Hey, isn't that a bit much?